Greetings all, this is Harry Nick. How are you guys? Today I'm going to cover something a little bit different because we had the in-flight report from Gen Con 2018 from FFG this morning, or last night if you're in America, and we had a lot of really cool stuff. A lot of cool stuff to talk about with all the Star Wars titles. Don't worry, for those of you who follow my regular content, the only reason I'm not talking about them now is because we don't have any articles for them currently. But at the end of the presentation we had this game we see in front of us, KeyForge, revealed. And it piqued my interest enough to make me decide, look, I'm going to cover this game, at least for the preliminary period while we talk about how it starts out, because it's a card game like many others. However, it has a unique twist in that there is no trading, no deck building. It's not a living card game where you buy decks separately and build decks like that. You just buy decks, that's it. You don't deck build, you don't change the cards in them, you just play the cards you get in the decks. Now, obviously there's a big set of cards out there, and the thing about the decks that you buy is they're all unique. They all have a randomized selection of cards. Now, how that's balanced out, we don't really know just yet. It doesn't seem to be any strong explanations on how the resources works. They know there's no mana system in this game. But it's a completely unique system in making card games. And indeed, it's been designed by Richard Garfield. And if you guys aren't aware, Richard Garfield is the guy that invented the trading card game. He invented Magic the Gathering and Android Netrunner for that matter. So yeah, very interesting, very unique. We have some images here of the cards that we can see. Again, not much to talk about. This card in the center here is your Archon. It's kind of like your commander in the game. The three symbols along the bottom of the card indicate 3 of the 7 houses in this sci-fi universe that KeyForge is a part of. If we scroll a little bit further down the page, we can see the 7 houses in the game. Now, there's a short explanation of what these are. Basically, these are archetypes. If we're thinking a game like X-Wing, these are factions. If we're thinking something like Magic the Gathering, these are the different colors in the game. They obviously function in their own unique way. They have their own unique flavor. For example, Sanctum is like angels and knights and all things righteous and good and all that kind of stuff. We have the Mars House, which is like greys and tech aliens and flying saucers, that kind of stuff. We have the Shadows House, which is like all the rogues and ninjas, the assassins, all that kind of stuff. Again, not too much reveal, we just have a rough indication of how these work. But they look very interesting, and it's really cool to see because in every one of these decks you get an Archon that is aligned with 3 of the houses. And you have cards in the deck which are from those 3 houses. And that's kind of interesting. It reminds me of draft packs in trading card games, if you guys are familiar with that kind of stuff. I remember way back in the day when I used to play Lord of the Rings, the old Decipher game, you used to get a draft pack which had like kind of the bare bones of a deck, which you had certain cultures which were the factions of that old game. It looks like we're getting a similar thing here, but instead of the bare bones of a deck, you're getting an entire deck. If we scroll further down the page here, we have some examples of the different cards. Again, I mentioned this is very similar to Magic the Gathering. At least that's the reports we're getting. We have here action cards, which I guess is very similar to instant and sorcery cards. Artifact and creatures, like artifact and creatures, I guess, and upgrade cards, which kind of reminds me of like equipments or auras from Magic the Gathering. And again, it's cool to see the color scheme across these. It really matches the kind of feel of the card. We get like these angelic knights with big swords. It's just a lovely flavor match and really striking colors. This is a big thing about this game I want to talk about as well. Because as a separate article here, we also have all these different playmats which are going to be released as a supplementary set of products to go along the core game. You can see here the art style is really, really striking. Indeed, a lot of these different art styles reminds me of different games. Like there's absolutely smacks of World of Warcraft, Overwatch, all that kind of stuff. But in essence, it's just all about those really brash colors. Very different in that regard to Magic the Gathering, which tends to use very understated art. Very good art, that's one of the key things which draws people into Magic the Gathering, but the art is rarely as brash and explosive as the kind of stuff we're seeing here. And it's just a really cool looking art style. The last thing I'm going to show you here is we have all the contents that comes in the core set. Now, what I was talking about before, these pre-prescribed decks that you can buy separately. I say pre-prescribed, they're completely random. But in the core set, you get 2 completely pre-prescribed beginner decks. Those are not random. Those are the same in every single core set. Based on these characters, Radiant Argus the Supreme and Miss Onyx Censorious. That's a bit of a tongue twister. We also get 2 of those random decks. and a bunch of tokens and stuff which relate to the gameplay, which we don't have much of an indication about. Oh, actually, on that note, I should mention that we're getting a lot of this information filtered through from General Game. They were nice enough to live stream the Fantasy Flight in-flight conference, which covered all this stuff. And Scott from General Games has also mentioned he is there and he has played a game, and we'll be posting a video of that soon on their Facebook and or YouTube. So look forward to that when that goes live. I will post that on my own Facebook for you guys to see. In the meantime, this looks really awesome. As someone who doesn't really want to devote a lot of extra time and money to another game, the fact that you can just buy these completely pre-made but randomized decks really appeals to me, and I get the impression a lot of people are in my shoes in that regard. So look forward to see what eventuates with this. When we get some information on the gameplay, the rules, the mechanics, I'll talk about that. In the meantime, guys, stay tuned. All the Star Wars stuff from Gen Con still to come. Like and subscribe, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Reddit, and I'll catch you guys later.